is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy is joining me as always. We are at a Wednesday today. Greg Cosell was amazing yesterday. We'll bring him back on the show today for some college examination. He was amazing yesterday.
So that's like a double-decker meat sandwich.
It is.
Right?
You know what? I am, and I'm going to talk about that in 5 minutes. I am a football guy. I am not really into, like, the periphery of football. Like, I like football. I bet football. I talk football. I've got my herd hierarchy. Greg Cosell, to me, is I could just do hours with him. He's just one of those guests I absolutely love, and I tend to watch if you like him and you like him too. So Charlie Weiss also stops by the show today. I want to start with this, though. And it is amazing how this works. I've said this for years and years and years about Michael Jordan, is that Michael Jordan was not only a great player, obviously, but Michael Jordan had this shoe campaign. And, you know, not to say that Magic and Bird didn't have shoe campaigns, but Nike created this Mars Blackmon, Michael Jordan shoe campaign, and it was literally a force field of popularity. And when you combine that with Michael Jordan's playing career, literally Michael Jordan punched teammates, infidelity, gambling issues, none of it punches through the force field. Is it Michael Jordan, between greatness and titles and the Nike campaign and his iconic stature? It doesn't matter if he was petty at a Hall of Fame speech. It doesn't matter that he got divorced. It doesn't matter about the gambling issues. 10 years after Michael Jordan retired, he was still America's most popular athlete, more than any NFL player. And this happens all the time. We've seen it time and time again. So this is the Brett Favre thing. Brett Favre, 6 times in his career, threw as many or more interceptions than touchdowns. And if you polled people today, most would say, oh, he's every bit as good as Brady. He's every bit as good. He's better than Aaron Rodgers. He's better than Peyton Manning. It was the Wranglers, the Razor Stubble, played for America's lovable Green Bay Packers. Popularity is an incredibly powerful thing. And Favre had it, and Michael Jordan still has it. And generally, to be super popular, you also have to be really, really good. So let's start with this. Steph Curry's really, really good. I mean, he's really, really good. But Steph Curry has become the adorable puppy in the NBA. He can do no wrong. So LeBron James had this workout video. You know, you ever see that workout video? It's viral, and LeBron's doing his workout stuff, and the camera's moving around him. And this thing's a couple years old. And, you know, he's just being goofy. He's just being goofy, and it's fun, and it's the world of YouTube, and LeBron's being goofy. So Steph Curry goes to a wedding this weekend and mocks him, and Kyrie Irving is there, and it's like, if LeBron mocks Steph Curry, that would not be taken as well. But Steph Curry, of course. So here's what Steph Curry said, because he got a little bit of heat, and Steph Curry said, oh, I was just joking.
I mean, obviously, I didn't know anybody was filming, so when I saw the video, I knew it was going to blow up. It's not something that, if you look at it through the keyhole of just that 20 seconds, you don't really understand what I was doing. I've been, ever since he posted that first video, I've loved it because he made a song that maybe a lot of people wouldn't have known, pretty popular, just by posting that video. So he's got me doing the dance.
Do you buy that? 50-50. Some do, some don't. But this is what popularity does. Steph Curry, this is like when the puppy chews your shoes. Oh, he didn't know any better. He was a puppy. He didn't know any better. He chewed your shoes up. When Steph Curry took a dump on the court, can you imagine if LeBron did that? Oh, he didn't. Steph Curry didn't know better. He thought the floor was grass. He thought it was the yard. He didn't mean to do that. When Steph Curry threw his mouthpiece, oh, the puppy's just a little riled up. You know, he's teething. The puppy's teething right now. He's going through a little bit of pain. He taunts LeBron. Well, he's got a little spunk. He has a force field of popularity. He's likable. He's fun. We're giving him a new nickname on this show. He's the Teflon puppy of the NBA. From now on this show, we're calling him Stephlon.
Oh, come on.
Stephlon Curry, the NBA's Teflon puppy of the NBA. Take a dump on the court, throw your mouthpiece, taunt LeBron. Oh, he's just teething. He doesn't know any better. If LeBron did that, we'd have DEFCON 12.
Well, we did have something way worse, and we barely even talked about it.
What was that?
The cookies, the dead Steph Curry body that was at the party, the drums with the
cookies,
Steph Curry thing. Like, come on. And by the way, if you listen to that song, it's called First Day Out. It's by T. Grizzly, okay? It's a very aggressive song that might lead you to dance in that way. So yes, he was doing what LeBron did, but LeBron did make that video and that song very famous. So isn't it possible that he was just doing it in a fun way? And if he was mocking LeBron, is it really that big of a deal, or are we looking way too far into it?
Just saying.
Because I would argue that a dead Steph Curry body says a lot more than imitating dance moves.
I don't know. If somebody made a dead cookie with me, I would laugh. If somebody taunted a video I did, I wouldn't laugh. Okay. I'm just telling you how it would land for me. Everybody reacts differently to different situations.
I'd be pretty upset if there was a dead body of me somewhere.
But this is what happens. Michael Jordan had it. Brett Favre. Brett Favre was everybody's favorite player, and he 6 times had more picks than touchdowns. He blew conference championship games. You remember when Brett Favre left Green Bay and had, as a married man, the incident on the internet? Literally nobody. It just washed over. It's just popularity is a remarkable thing. And we just tend to, if you like people, you look over their flaws. Michael Jordan has a list of bad behavior. Nobody cares.
But I agree with you, but in that case, LeBron is more popular than Steph.
Oh, I don't know. He's better. I don't know.
Well, how do you define popular?
Shoe sales, YouTube images, global recognition, jersey sales. I think Steph's the most popular player in the league. I don't think he's the best. I think he's the most popular. He went to the NBA Finals 2 years ago as the MVP and did not play well. Was not the best guard on the court, and there was no criticism. That is. Listen, man, LeBron has a bad half. In the Eastern Conference Finals against Boston, the galaxy exploded. Like, Steph has bad games in the finals. Crickets. Well, nobody cares.
The better and the bigger that you are, you open yourself for more criticism.
Well, I'm saying Steph is the most popular player in the league. He's the most... I mean, listen, say what you want about Westbrook. He gets criticized by some. Even the critics who like him are like, sometimes he can be a little, tunnel vision. Mm-hmm. I want to segue to this. So this is now a story. The Ravens head coach, John Harbaugh, good coach, and general manager Ozzie Newsome, good GM, according to Diana Rossini, a reporter, they support signing Colin Kaepernick, but they've been met with resistance from the owner, Steve Bisciotti. Bisciotti was quoted earlier this week saying he's getting calls from season ticket holders that are like, well, I'll cancel our ticket. So the business owner's like, okay, this is landing differently for me. But can I talk about something for a second? I want to talk about and I'll let you kind of inside the velvet rope here. And I don't do it a lot, and this may not be interesting to you at all, but I'm just going to kind of let you think how I think before I do a show. Let's not talk about Kaepernick, the quarterback. Let's talk about Kaepernick, the topic. I've mostly steered away from it. And the reason I've steered away from it is because he's a marginal backup player, and I don't spend a lot of time talking about backup quarterbacks. And it feels like to me this story is about politics and not football. The people all in on Kaepernick tend to lean left socially, and the people against him lean right. I like talking football. But here's what's funny about it. Shannon Sharp has gone all in on Kaepernick, and it's rewarded him with ratings and massive digital downloads. Jason Whitlock, my friend, has also gone all in on this, and it's the most popular stuff he's ever done. And it's a weird business we're in where, like, you got to be careful about being self-righteous. When Aaron Hernandez committed suicide, I did not talk about it in the air. And I was self-righteous. And I'm like, it's dark, it's suicide, he's not a good person, I'm not going to give him any publicity, and I was holier than thou. And I don't like talking about death on my show anyway. Well, I was punished for it. That day, my numbers plummeted because it was the only story you wanted to talk about. So I went self-righteous, and you punished me. And I've said this for years. You never punish me for being wrong. My blazing 5 picks, I hit 55%. If I don't give them every week, you yell at me. What you punish me for is choosing the wrong topics and being uninteresting. And I probably should talk more about Kaepernick because he's polarizing. But the reason I haven't is because I don't feel it would be authentic because I don't really care. He's a backup player. Now, I did talk about Tebow for a while, but Tebow started a bunch of games and inexplicably won those games. And after he was let go by Denver, my takeaway was guys on like a 7-game winning streak with the Jets, this is going to be interesting. And then he went to New England, and I thought, okay, can't play. Jets couldn't figure him out. Story's done. I got off it. And about the same time, you got tired of it. But Kaepernick, to me, is a fringe player. And the story now, when I talk Kaepernick, feels 90% politics and 10% football. And I got to be honest with you. Kaepernick now never talks. So I have a fringe backup player who never talks, who essentially lets others talk for him. And I don't feel this story is authentic. I think the media is way more interested in this story than the public is. But yet Shannon Sharp loves this story. They've been rewarded. Whitlock loves this story. He's been rewarded. And I'm probably being an idiot because he's polarizing, and that's good for my business. But I saw a story yesterday where the Colts are still expecting Andrew Luck to emerge before week 1 on the PUP list, meaning he could be out and not play. And the others, and immediately everybody's like, ooh, Kaepernick, Indianapolis. And my takeaway is, do I really think people in the Colts offices right now are saying Kaepernick? I do not. So therefore, the story doesn't feel authentic at all. You know what I'd like to talk about today, but I'm not going to? Deshaun Watson, Bill O'Brien, coach of Houston, has come out to say that Clemson quarterback everybody doubted, he's like way better than we thought. And that was the kid I said before the draft, I think that kid can play. I don't know if he's going to be this, but he looks like he can start in this league. He's a lot better than Brock Osweiler. He's a lot more talented than Brock Osweiler. He got better feet than Brock Osweiler. Got more wins than Brock Osweiler. Brock Osweiler couldn't win big in college. So, this is just kind of behind the curtain on Kaepernick. Forget the quarterback thing. One of the reasons I've avoided this topic is it just doesn't feel authentic. But you know what? You guys, I'm looking at all the downloads and the numbers and the Facebook and the digital, and the people seem to be, you say you don't like it, but you're consuming it. So in the end, I do believe Kaepernick eventually lands on a team because 69 guys last year took a snap as a quarterback. 69 guys last year. 90 threw a pass, but that counts reverses, halfbacks, receivers. 69 guys took a snap. He's one of the 70 best quarterbacks. He's probably one of the best 40 in the country. And my gut feeling is, the Cowboys a couple years ago went down to Kellen Moore. They would take somebody off the street, and I think Kaepernick, I don't know if Baltimore's the best place with their offense in that city and the tension, but I think he's going to play. So anyway, that's just kind of going behind the curtain on this Kaepernick story. Why I've kind of avoided it. And again, I get burned when I get self-righteous. I get burned in this business when I think that's a dumb talk. The American political media was too good for Trump. He's now our president. Like, you got to be careful about not talking about Cap or not talking about Aaron Hernandez, because when I don't, I pay a price. Today, I think there's actual news. John Harbaugh and Ozzie Newsome, according to a reporter, want him or at least support him, and the owner's like, I'm getting calls from suite holders and advertisers. I'm hearing a different voice than the tape you're seeing. I'm hearing from angry people. You're hearing from players, and of course players like him. So that's where we are today. We have Greg Cosell this hour. He came on yesterday. It's such a meat sandwich. He's going to break down the college quarterbacks. I don't remember a time, and maybe it happened, but we have 3 college quarterbacks this year, and there is real division among NFL people. Who's the best? Everybody believes they're franchise quarterbacks. Every NFL person I have as a contact believes they're all potentially not Bs like last year's draft. They're all A's. 3 new NFL franchise quarterbacks. Don't forget, Breeze may retire, Big Ben may retire, Brady may retire this year or next. So we're going to have a changing of the guard here in the NFL. Big Ben's about done. Brady's about done. Drew Brees about done. Phillip Rivers has 2 more years. He's about done. So this coming draft in the NFL, we got 3 highly A-rated quarterbacks, and Greg Cosell shows us tape on all 3, and I think you'll be really fascinated by it. Coming up next, very, very interesting moment yesterday when an American superstar and boy, he qualifies as a superstar, fired at Skip Bayless. And I've got some thoughts on this. Very interesting next. If you're looking to sell your car, there's now a new, better way to do it with TrueCar. Fast and easy, best way to price your car from the comfort of your home, TrueCar.com/trade today. This is kind of interesting. So yesterday, Skip and Shannon on Undisputed doing the show, and apparently, Shannon will go out and he'll really interact with people and yell and scream at the audience, and Skip Bayless just stays off it. He doesn't, he sees his, like I do, his Twitter and Facebook as a promotional tool. He's not going to waste a lot of energy on yelling and screaming, but everybody does it different in our business. Some politicians go back at the public, some media people do, some singers, some basketball players. Kevin Durant was in the news this week for going back at a fan and getting into a situation where he kind of took a shot at LeBron James because Kevin Durant went to social media to talk to a random guy. And Skip Bayless is like, why are you doing that? And that was kind of my question. Like, what are you doing? You're a superstar in America. Like, stay out of the, talking to eggs on Twitter. So anyway, Durant then talked to Skip on social media. He said, hey, Skip, don't forget you're the voice of the people. Just because they disagree with you doesn't mean that you can cut them off completely. Look at your tweets, man. It's just sports talk. It's not life or death. You're taking the easy way out. Smiley face, smiley face. I think that's what you call those. That's why Shannon and I respond to people. It's fun. It's talking. It's sports. We played, so I see why you wouldn't get that. On the other hand, you are right, though. I need to also respond to the positive fans. Thank you and keep repping. Sometimes you got to handle business, LOL. So it was good-natured, and this happened about 24 hours ago. First of all, I think it's always interesting. Skip Bayless has a way of getting athletes to respond. He's relevant, and, I think that's important in our business. But this is funny. So Kevin Durant went to Golden State to win a title, and therefore, so he wouldn't have to respond to any of his critics. And now, more than ever, Kevin Durant is responding to his critics. He's never been more reactionary. He has never been more reactionary. And they used to say this about umpires in baseball, that certain umpires have what they call rabbit ears, like they respond to everything. And an umpire has to be able to deal with, like, just sort of compartmentalize it. Fans can say what they want. Players in the dugout can say, just call balls and strikes. But KD actually admitted that, like, when he went to Golden State, he locked himself in a room for 4 days because he didn't want to hear the criticism. And I was thinking about this. Like, it is amazing that there are 3 or 4 athletes right now that I would put on Mount Crymore, that they respond to criticism at an absurd level. Cam Newton, Kevin Durant, David Price of the Red Sox, and Odell Beckham. That they are incredibly reactionary to random thoughts, media thoughts, marginal criticism. And, I mean, I'm kind of fascinated by this, is that Kevin Durant, now I don't think he's as good as LeBron, but you can make the argument that he was certainly the best player in the NBA Finals. He's taking shots at people on YouTube. I find it really interesting. I mean, Cam's reactionary. Odell Beckham got into a fight with a kicking net. David Price with the Red Sox. I mean, I've never seen an athlete that thin-skinned. So some athletes can tune it out. Some athletes, you put them on Mount Crymore. I do think Durant's a remarkable player, and there's nobody happier in the world that he's winning than I am. And by the way, I have never once in my life gone out of my way to get people to respond. I don't really care. If they do, they do. But when I criticized Dabo, I didn't criticize Dabo Swinney. I said during the year last year, I'm like, I don't think Clemson's as good as all these other teams because Alabama's destroying everybody and Florida State. And I started naming all these teams, Ohio State, and I'm like, they're all killing people. And Clemson should have lost 4 times. And then as soon as Clemson won the national title, their coach came out. Remember this? This was minutes after winning the title, took a shot at me.
We left no doubt tonight. We wanted to play Alabama because now y'all got to change your stories. You got to change the narrative. Y'all got to mix it up. The guy that called us a fraud, ask Alabama for a fraud. Was his name Colin Kaepernick? Ask him. I don't never met him, don't know him. Ask him if we're Alabama if we're a fraud. Ask Ohio State if we're a fraud. Ask Oklahoma if we're a fraud. The only fraud is that guy because he didn't do his homework. I hope y'all print that.
I got to be honest with you. I didn't intend for it to land that way. It did, but much like KD and Skip, it wasn't the worst day. If people react, some coaches hear everything. Some coaches hear nothing. Saban fired back at Paul Feinbaum. It's you think these Jay-Z's and these great players, you think they're living in their mansions. You know what? They have a lot of free time because a lot of these rich people have people do their shopping and people get their groceries and people fix their cars. And they have a lot of free time. Regular guy in the street's going into the garage to put his own oil in. And he's going to the grocery store. And he's waiting in line at DMV. Superstars don't. They've got layers of people to do that. Translation, on their phone, 4 hours, nothing but free time. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
There's conflicting reports now. One says that Andrew Luck will be ready for Week 1. Another says he will not be ready for Week 1. He's still on the PUP list, has yet to throw the ball. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. I strongly believe that if he is maybe not ready, then don't play him.
Yeah, I think that's what they think, too. You know, it's a weird situation because it's such a winnable division. And we've never had a situation like a guy could play, but a team holds him out. So you're obviously going to play him the minute you think you can. But I tell you what, man, there's a lot of tension here because if he goes down and takes another shot, you could be looking at the college only gives us about 2 great quarterbacks a decade. Mm-hmm. And this guy's career could end up being, if you risk it, could end up being 5 years, not 15.
Roger Goodell was talking and said something kind of crazy. He said that football players live longer than non-football players.
I don't think that's true.
Here he is.
The average NFL player lives 5 years longer than you, on average. So their lifespan is actually longer and healthier. And I think because of all the advancements, including the medical care, that number is going to even increase for them. So I think we just got to make sure we stay with the real data, because that's real data.
Okay, you and I know that you can take real data and skew it to make almost any argument that you want to make. He is referring to a study by the Centers for Disease Control. The only problem with this is that in the study itself, it says it does realize that athletes are generally healthier people than the normal public, even before they even enter the game. They are just healthier, stronger people.
Right.
So it doesn't work. But Roger Goodell using the real data and skewing it, which, hey, we all do it.
Listen, nobody has a vodka at night thinking it extends their life. I don't think most football players think when they're playing it extends my life. Now, it can give you a dynamic life. You know, you can generationally, you can pay for parents and homes. But I don't think anybody, it's caveat emptor with smoking. Nobody smokes and thinks, I'll go 8 more years because I smoke. Like if you play football, you're going to end up with goofy fingers and a bad back. You could end up rich, but you're going to have some
knee problems.
Yes,
yeah.
I mean Mark Schlereth had I'm not joking here, 27 left knee surgeries.
Yeah, so you might live longer, but you've had 27 knee surgeries.
Right. You're limping everywhere.
Exactly. And finally, Carmelo Anthony was at one point saying that he was willing to waive his no-trade clause to go to either the Houston Rockets or the Cavs. Now he's reportedly no longer interested in waiving his no-trade clause for the Cavs because of the drama that is going on in Cleveland right now.
Yeah.
And I will say that is even more reason why LeBron should have never let it get to this place to begin with.
Well, listen.
And even when it did, even when he heard, hey, Kyrie wants a trade, try to wrap that thing up, try to mend the wounds, try to do something, because now people are looking at your entire organization as somewhere they don't want to be a part of.
It's hard enough to get people to Cleveland. If people think Cavaliers and dysfunction.
Exactly.
Like when it's perfect, it's hard to get people to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Like when it's ideal and that roster, I'm telling you, when Kyrie leaves, even LeBron, I don't think you can win the East with that roster without Kyrie.
Right, but this is, I mean, I know you've said that this is a bad look for Kyrie. This is also a really bad look for LeBron. And I haven't heard LeBron say or do anything to kind of try to clean it up.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Let's bring on Doug Gottlieb, Fox Sports Radio after me, basketball analyst. Also loves his football. Okay, I want to actually start with. I'll start with Steph, and I'm going to move into different stuff. Good to see you, bud. I'm calling Steph Curry. He is the NBA's puppy. He's adorable. Everything he does, it's like he's teething. That's why I threw his mouthpiece. He is so darn popular. We're calling him Stephlon. He's the Teflon puppy of the NBA. So I think if LeBron mocked him at a wedding, LeBron would take some heat. Steph mocks LeBron. It's seen as lovable because I think Steph's incredibly likable.
Well, I mean, LeBron has mocked Steph in the past. And remember, LeBron, when they lost to the Dallas Mavericks, remember he mocked Dirk Nowitzki for coughing and saying that he was sick during the NBA Finals. So these are things that LeBron has actually done.
Yeah.
But, let's look at it in totality. He was having fun at a wedding, and he was mocking something that LeBron did on social media, right? Guy, in totality, he's shown himself to be a good father, a good husband, a guy who likes to have fun, and he's handed over the conch, if you will, the leadership role of the Golden State Warriors at the end of the game to another player. He welcomed in a bigger superstar to help the team win. I mean, I don't understand how we can, if you're going to look in totality and say, well, he gets away with little things, maybe, but that's because the greater good is so much greater than mocking LeBron. By the way, his impersonation is dead on, right? He could not have done it any better. If you're going to do an impersonation, if you're going to mock somebody, you got to do it right. He did it right. I got no problem with it. It was funny. Anybody who saw it thought it was funny. And oh yeah, by the way, I'm sure LeBron James's boys have mocked him in the past. It just got caught on social media.
I did not hear this, and I did not see a ton of it on social media. I was doing our stuff yesterday, but Adrian Beltre got his 3,000th hit, and you kind of dedicated your show to I'm kind of suspicious, which I'll let you get back to those reasons in a second. I called out Lance Armstrong before the world did, and I said cycling has a culture of this, and he is significantly better than even the second best.
Right.
I called out Eric Gagne in L.A. I'm like, okay, 5-starter to the most unhittable reliever of all time, and his velocity's gone up. In both instances, Lance Armstrong and Eric Gagne, I got massive pushback. This is outrageous. How can you make that claim? And what I always said was, there's a culture. Right. I'm not blind. Now, people yesterday are giving you some heat. So let's start with what you said about Adrian Beltre, who, by the way, now is 38, having a unbelievable year as he's aged, and that all of a sudden my antennas go up.
Right.
What did you say?
Well, what I said was, don't you just wonder? Remember, I'm not accusing him of something I have no idea about, but there's different markers that in the past we've been led to believe those guys are potentially using, right? Like he had the 1-year spike with the Dodgers. One of the toughest places to hit home runs is in Dodger Stadium.
Yes, it is.
The 1 year in which he had 48 home runs early in his career was a contract year. And like the old it's the D. Gordon did it in Miami with the Marlins, right? You got a contract year coming up, you do some things, you train a little extra hard, you get a little extra help to have that career spike. Okay? But if you look at his 20s and his 30s, not only is there no drop-off, but there's actually, and granted he's played in more hitter-friendly parks in his 30s, but there's actually been better production in his 30s than 20s. Okay, so there's something that we learned in the past from the steroid era. Normally players go through, that career swing to where they hit 33, 34, and suddenly they can't catch up to the high heat, and their batting average, their on-base percentage, their power numbers start to dwindle. His have not. His have remained quite steady. And then you factor in that the highest percentage of players suspended for PEDs have been from the Dominican Republic, and he's a player from the Dominican Republic.
Now that's a part of their. They have a kind of a system over there, which kind of
it's a culture in that young players are basically drugged or whatever and induced in order to make it to the major leagues, make it off the island.
Baseball's aware of this.
Everybody's aware of it.
Is not happy with it.
Right. Everybody's aware of it. Everybody knows it's a problem. And I simply said, look, it's been a problem in the Dominican Republic. He's performing really well in his late 30s. And he has these other markers with the Rangers, who, by the way, that's an organization that in the past, granted, different regime running it, has had numerous steroid abusers. Doesn't it make you wonder? Don't sports fans wonder how this guy is able to be successful in his late 30s?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I got into this topic yesterday. And Roger Federer feels better now than 2 years ago. Kobe scored 60 in his last game.
Yeah, I heard this argument, though. But Kobe had the worst field goal percentage of any starter in the NBA, right? Roger Federer can only be – he took time off last year and has only been good in the specific majors. Like, he can't be – the thing about baseball is you get, I think, 16 days off all year long, right? It's really hard to maintain a level of consistency.
Yeah.
So I actually think those guys have gone through more normal kind of career swings. Federer has, and plus their bodies break down. And maybe that's the thing with Adrian Beltre is he's lucky his body hasn't broken down. But I did hear it yesterday, and it is interesting. You brought up Tom Brady.
He's better now than he was 3 years ago.
Well, he also had the first 4 games off last year. Does that help him? Does that help him so he only has to play? Even LeBron James, who's great, but LeBron James takes games off now. And remember, they had shorter series in the NBA playoffs so they can have more rest.
Yeah, I guess my takeaway was I'm seeing a lot of these legends, like they're really good longer. I mean, it used to be about 35. Kenny Stabler was just, the late Kenny Stabler, it was over. Like, you just watch a guy and you're like, Pete Rose, 35. Okay, can't play. So, no, it is interesting, and I'm sure you got a lot of pushback on this stuff. I also think a component to this, Doug, is that the baseball media tends to be more of a supporter and romanticizing the sport than reporting on it. Jason Stark said during the steroid controversy, a respected journalist in baseball, it's not my job to cover that story. Well, hell, whose is it? Where in the NFL, Deflategate, everybody covered it, almost to a fault.
Right.
So I do think there's a sense that the baseball media is not being thorough in their questions about this, and therefore we in radio and TV feel like maybe it's an avenue we should jump in.
Well, look, I think it's probably in many ways, if you want to, people want to blame me. Like, don't blame me. Blame all the Dominican players in the past that have tested positive. Don't blame me.
Those are blame all the trainers there.
Right. Well, or don't, for example, look, Pudge Rodriguez is in the Hall of Fame. Like, Pudge Rodriguez was a juicer. I mean, like,
has that been confirmed?
The juxtaposition, yeah, I mean, yes. And then he was asked about it when he was elected into the Hall of Fame, and he doesn't want to talk about it now, right? Like, look at Pudge's body before and Pudge's body after testing, and it changed dramatically. I mean, even Biggio, who was elected in the Hall of Fame, he's lumped in with Ken Caminiti because Caminiti was a juicer. So, don't blame us for paying attention to baseball's past. Blame the guys who did wrong in the past, because those are the guys that we associate you with. And all I'm saying is, as a sports fan, we're allowed to wonder. We're allowed to suspect that maybe something is right. Or maybe we're allowed, as you are thinking, maybe it's because science has changed, training has changed, diet has changed, that guys are able to prolong their careers better than they were.
Yeah, I mean, like, I looked at Adrian Beltre, and my takeaway was he's always been a really good hitter. And all these athletes in my life now at 37, 37's the new 33.
But it's not in baseball. That's the thing. That what's changed since they've taken steroids and greenies out of baseball is the reason these teams go young is 2 reasons. One, you're under club control for 6 years.
Yes.
Like, you're making no money for your first 4 years.
Yeah.
0.
And
because younger players are more virile and more productive late in the season, they don't get worn down like guys in their 30s. Everybody else has dropped off, unlike the Barry Bondses of the world, the Roger Clemenses of the world, who all of a sudden saw this career spike in their late 30s because we know what they were doing.
And finally, Doug Gottlieb joining us, radio show after ours. I have gone light on the Kaepernick story. Shannon Sharp, Skip all in, Jason Whitlock all in, Clay Travis all in, a lot of people all in. I don't get to hear your show because I'm prepping for my next show. I think it's 90% politics, 10% football, therefore it turns me off. Am I making a mistake? Do you think America deeply cares about Kaepernick?
I think that the football element that you're missing is that there's no way Joe Flacco wants this in his shop. Right? If you read Joe Flacco's comments, he's like, look, I hope he makes it back to the NFL, and it'd be great to have him. I don't want him to make it as a starter here, right? Like, you're Joe Flacco. You've always fought off the is he elite discussion.
Yeah.
He signed the biggest contract in the history of the league.
Kind of underachieved since.
Yeah, 2 years ago he tore his knee. Last year he wasn't great. Greg Roman, of course, who's part of the offensive staff, was the offensive coordinator with Colin Kaepernick in San Francisco. Like, you have rabbis in the room to help Kaepernick. The last thing you want when you're a starting quarterback fighting for your life in a division like the AFC North is a popular backup, whatever level. And if you listen to the comments, even if they're just saying it for the media, you have Terrell Suggs saying, we'd love to have him come in here and compete. Like, if you're Joe Flacco, like, there's no competition at quarterback in the NFL. This is not college and the spring game, right? This is the National Football League, and it's my team. Right now, I think Steve Bisciotti is taking all of the heat. But I think really this comes down to Joe Flacco doesn't want that in his locker room, and it's not because of the politics. It's because you don't want a popular, formerly successful backup to somehow unsettle your quarterback situation.
Good seeing you, Doug Gottlieb. Gary Klein at the L.A. Rams camp, Jared Goff, Greg Cosell, Charlie Weiss. Thanks, Dub. Back in a second. It's the Herd in L.A. People are talking about the NFL has to worry about the CTE thing, and that's certainly a concern. Like any business, there's multiple concerns. Another thing in the NFL that people aren't talking a great deal about is we got three legends about to retire at quarterback. Big Ben considered retirement. Brady's really close, and Breeze doesn't have many more years left. And Phillip Rivers and Eli Manning are getting long in the tooth. This is one of the problems. The NFL, it really has always been a quarterback-driven league, now just more than ever. It used to be you huddled, you had 50 plays a game. Now you have 68, 70 plays a game, more plays for the quarterback to have. And it's really interesting that the NFL is getting into a spot where they've really been able to rely on some big names for 15 years. And Favre, now he's gone Manning, now he gone Brady. And you got to keep replenishing the system because nothing's worse than bad football. You can say you love defense. No, you don't. You love your team's defense. There's nothing worse than 6-3 football. There is nothing worse than feudal football. That's why it's really important that Andrew Luck get back upright. It's really important that Dak Prescott's good and Russell Wilson's good and Jared Goff makes it. Because I'm here to tell you, you can talk about all the issues that the NFL has. What you don't want to be is awful television. And there's nothing worse in football than 17 for 34, 52% completion rate. The numbers, I remember years and years ago, it may have been 20 years ago, that like Steve Young and Aikman, and I'm getting the names wrong, but it was a series of like Randall Cunningham and Aikman and Steve Young, and they all retired, and there's about 5 of them. Goulet, I could be wrong on the names, but it was like 5 of the legends over a 2-year period left. And you went from like really great to Donovan McNabb, who was good, but not, and the league for a couple of years dipped. So that's why I'm rooting for Luck. I'm rooting for Marcus Mariota. Now, I do think, here's the good news. Russell Wilson's good and young. Andrew Luck's good and young. Derek Carr is magical, good and young. And Dak Prescott, crossing my fingers, is good and young. And then you have like 3 older guys in the league. Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers. I think Cam will bounce back to some level. I'm still not completely sold on Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston. I am leaning heavily toward it looks like it works. Mariota can be really good in the red zone, very accurate. Jameis Winston makes some bad throws, but he makes some great throws where like a lot of guys in this league just can't make the plays Jameis Winston does. So I think the NFL's in a healthy spot, but we're getting real close now. Big Ben, Breeze, Brady, done. And Eli and Phillip are right behind him. So that's why it's really, really important. This NFL draft coming up, you got 3 guys who are considered A franchise quarterbacks. That doesn't happen much. It's usually an A, 2 Bs, multiple Cs. You got 3 A's. The USC kid, the Wyoming kid, the UCLA kid, Greg Cosell. In 35 minutes, we'll talk about all those. I saw another story today, and I just kind of, this is something that for years gets under my skin. There was a really, really good basketball player. He was a 5-star high school player. And then he committed to Western Kentucky, and he got there, and like an hour later, he's like, I want to get out of here. And the coach suspends him, and now they're letting him transfer out. This is where I think the media they're too empathetic. This idea that college athletes should just be able to transfer whenever they want to whoever they want is baloney. Can you just walk out of your company? Could I walk out of my company today and go to ESPN? I'd get sued. Well, but you're paid and they're college kids. Let me tell you something. If you look at what is furnished to college athletes, no college debt, the travel, the tutors, the opportunities, the swag, they are now getting paid above and beyond their scholarship. They are now getting paid. You're getting to a point now, what if Sam Darnold at USC said, tomorrow I'm transferring? It throws every coach, every teammate, everybody in the athletic department, because that's the sport that makes money, it throws a tsunami, a total wrench into the athletic department. Well, Colin, coaches can leave whenever they want. No, they can't. They have buyouts. When Rich Rod left Michigan, or was it West Virginia? When Rich Rod was at West Virginia and he left, he had to pay the school $4 million. This idea coaches can just go whenever they want. Harbaugh can go to Ohio State tomorrow. Urban can go to Michigan State tomorrow. No, they couldn't. There's buyouts. So, I am for players having the ability to be mobile once they get to college. But there should be certain restrictions based on proximity to the season. There should be certain dates you're allowed to. And I don't have a problem if Kentucky wouldn't want their best player transferring to Louisville. I don't have a problem with a school getting a list of 2 schools they can't transfer to because it hurts their long-term recruiting viability. I think sometimes the media on that's way too soft. Everybody, there's restrictions on virtually anybody leaving a family and going to a rival family. It's the Herd. This is the Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening, live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy is joining me. I want to remind everybody tonight, coverage starts Soldier Field in Chicago tonight. It's the MLS All-Star Game on FS1. 8:30 Eastern it starts. MLS against Real Madrid. Michael Bradley will play for a World Cup team. Tim Howard will play. Bastian Schweinsteiger will play. MLS All-Star Game tonight. They sent us jerseys. Real Madrid takes on the MLS All-Stars. Coverage starts FS1 tonight, Soldier Field in Chicago at 8:30 Eastern. This is on the heels, of course, of the United States men's national team winning the Gold Cup on this very network. So you'll see some of those stars tonight at the MLS All-Star Game. I saw yesterday there was a big fight in the NFL. And the New England Patriots had this big fight between Julian Edelman, kind of a scrappy wide receiver, and Stephon Gilmore, who's a real scrappy cornerback. They're tough guys, right? And it's very interesting that the entire culture of football is play through pain. And I'm almost surprised you don't get more fights. They were both kicked out of practice. And that's kind of Belichick's thing. You get into a fight, he kicks you out of practice. But I have always been shocked by why there are not more fights. Guys are competing for $1 million jobs. And there's no guaranteed salaries in the NFL. And in basketball, if you get into a fight, you lack emotional control. In baseball, you're a hothead. But in football, a fight elevates your manhood. That's the culture of football, and it always has been. If you can't play through pain, you're not a man. You shouldn't be playing football. I have always been shocked by how few fights there are in NFL training camps. Because in my opinion, football was the first reality show in America. Hungry, desperate young people in a room fighting for millions of dollars. And the attention of the lead producer / coach. That is essentially the makings of a reality show. An NFL training camp is a reality show. Young people trying to gain the attention of the man who pays and signs off on $1 million checks. It's a room, it's feisty, get noticed, stand out, and you get maybe, every team gets maybe 1 or 2 a camp. Always been shocked there's not far more of those. Speaking of camp, we've bounced around to the Raiders camp. We've bounced around to the Cowboys camp. We have tried to every day in the last couple of weeks give you a new sound, a new look of a training camp. And I have said this year, I believe there are a couple of teams that will pull back in the NFL. This is the way it always works. That good teams, Atlanta's one of those, I think could pull back. I think Carolina and the Rams could double their wins. Via the Coward Global Satellite Network, we go to L.A. Rams camp. And I was talking, Gary Klein, my buddy, who I've known for a long time, covers him for the L.A. Times. I was talking about this last hour. We're getting to an interesting situation in the NFL, Gary, where Big Ben's about to retire, Brady is, Breeze is, Phillip Rivers is old, and there's this new crop of quarterbacks. And Jared Goff's a number 1 pick, and there's a ton of pressure. He was bad last year, and it wasn't just bad, Gary. It was the optics. He looked overwhelmed. He looked small. So just take me to what you've seen so far in camp. Optic-wise, does he look bigger? Does he look stronger? Does he look more confident?
Yeah, Colin, Jared Goff definitely looks bigger. He's a year older. He is much more confident. And even though he didn't do well in those 7 games last season, he does have a foundation now to build off. Remember, the offense he was operating in last year with Jeff Fisher's staff, with Greg Robinson at left tackle, with those receivers, this is a completely different look now. And Jared Goff looks different in training camp. We'll see if he can parlay it during the preseason and into the regular season.
But it is interesting, Gary. Quarterbacks get a short leash. And so you can draft a Joey Harrington, but by the middle of his second year, if he looks overwhelmed, there are scouts and people that are saying, okay, we whiffed on this. What if Goff struggles in the first month and a half? Do you believe they are all in as an organization, regardless of record? What if halfway through this season he's 2-6 and hasn't jumped off the screen?
Well, I think it's going to depend how poorly he's playing, if that's the case. The Rams with a new coach, with a new defense, have some adjustments to make. Let's remember, Jared Goff was the number 1 pick in the 2016 draft. Every move the Rams have made in the offseason, seemingly, has been to nurture him. That includes the hiring of Sean McVay. That includes bringing in Robert Woods. That includes bringing in Andrew Whitworth. So I think he's got a pretty long leash. But as you mentioned, if he's really struggling, if kind of the unknown happens, if he really is having a hard time, then the Rams are going to have a decision to make. I still think with all they've invested, with what they did with the draft to trade up to get him, that they're going to give him every opportunity to succeed.
The highest ranked player in the NFL, when you ask scouts, is often Aaron Donald, the defensive lineman for the Rams. Now, he's holding out of camp. He is, again, for when they do the metrics and they grade players, you take quarterbacks out, he ranks as the highest graded player, and he's not in camp. And it's not like the attendance is through the roof. This is not a good look. What is an update on that?
Well, there really is no update, Colin. He's not here. I think Aaron Donald is one of those players that if you talk to teammates and just from being around him for about a year, it's clear he's one of those guys that wants to be here. He wants to be in camp. He's making a statement. The Rams are aware of it. But at some point, I would expect Aaron Donald is going to report. There's just too much at stake in terms of, possibly losing a year towards free agency, all the fines that are piling up. He's made his statement. I can't imagine that the Rams or Donald are going to let this get to the point where he doesn't show up at all for the regular season.
And they had a defensive lineman hurt yesterday out for the year, so that expedites the process. All right, their coach is Sean McVay, who you told me in the break is now, my bad, he's not 30, he's 31, so he's a sage veteran. So there's part of me that thinks, ooh, I love this fresh new approach. And then there's part of me that thinks, I remember when I was 30, 31. I couldn't make a decision to save my life. He's now running the NFL franchise in Los Angeles. You're around him. Not every 31's the same. What are your initial impressions of their new coach, Sean McVay?
Well, he's certainly not the typical, 31-year-old. He is young, but with the experience he's had in the NFL with John Gruden and others, I think if you talk to everyone, GMs, you talk to coaches, he's prepared for this. The big question, of course, is can a 31-year-old command the room at a critical time in the season? To this point, the players have said he's well prepared, he knows what he's talking about, and there is a new energy in this Rams organization. But that's the major question we're all going to be following, Colin, is can a 31-year-old coach really do it in the NFL?
Now, by the way, Fisher's staff was very defensive-minded. There were some yellers and screamers. It was an old school, almost militaristic at times with his defensive coaches. Are the staff, does it feel different today at practice from a year ago for you, Gary?
It definitely feels different, Colin. And you mentioned Jeff Fisher. He'd been in the league a long time. His coaches have been in the league a long time. This is not just Sean McVay who's young. This is Matt LaFleur, a young offensive coordinator coming from the Atlanta Falcons. Lots of young defensive coaches going along with Wade Phillips, the experienced veteran. So there is a tangible difference out here on the practice field in terms of the energy, I think the accountability from the players. We'll see if that translates, but to this point, early in training camp, it looks as if they're on the right track.
L.A. Times, Gary Klein, used to cover SC. That's where we met. Great seeing you, Gary. Thank you again.
Thanks, Colin.
You bet. Greg Cosell will stop by in 10 minutes. The other story today, and I think it is a story, that Colin Kaepernick, according to a news reporter, let me get her name, Diana Rossini, she says that John Harbaugh and Ossie Newsome support signing Colin Kaepernick. They have met resistance from the owner, Steve Buscemi, according to sources. And Buscemi has said, I'm getting pushback from fans. Again, if you own an NFL franchise, this has been my takeaway on Cap, I would always be very reluctant to give a backup quarterback who's newsworthy a gig. That's why I was anti-Tebow at the end. I'm anti-Manziel getting a gig. He's too newsworthy. I'm not for giving Kaepernick a gig. I want my backup quarterbacks to have backup quarterback personalities. Who are they? I couldn't honestly tell you. Who backs up Derek Carr? Connor Cook? If Connor Cook walked in our studio, wouldn't know who he is. I know well who Johnny Manziel is. And then when you combine Kaepernick being well-known and Flacco's vanilla dud personality, first practice, it's cameras toward Kaepernick. It's questions to all the players about Kaepernick. I try to be consistent. I don't want my backup quarterback to be a newsworthy player. That's why I'm not a Tebow guy, because he's not a franchise guy. I'm not a Kaepernick guy. I don't think you build a franchise around him. And I'm not a Manziel guy. Now, if you believe a backup like Kirk Cousins, if you really believed a couple years ago in Washington, our backup could end up being a top 10 guy in the league, then you can keep a backup. Like Jimmy Garoppolo right now is kind of newsworthy because of Brady. Well, he's going to be the future of the team. There are situations where I would have a higher profile backup if I truly believe I'm going to build the next 7 years around him. Joe Flacco's got a contract, and he's not going anywhere. Greg Cosell's around the corner. He'll be great today. It was remarkable yesterday. Sometimes people say something, and it's like, God, I wish I would have thought of that. Like, you ever walked into like a manager's office and they have one of those plaques? It used to be really popular in the 70s, 80s, and it would be like one of those motivational things, or penny saved, a penny earned. And you're like, man, I wish I would have come up with that saying. That's an awesome saying. And yesterday, and I'll get to the saying in a second, but it was really smart, and it really made me think. And it was from a friend of mine. So Jimmy Garoppolo came out, backup quarterback for the Patriots, and they're going to build a franchise around him. I mean, this is a guy they think 10, 12-year starter. And that's my exception when it comes to backups. If you do think they're going to supplant your starter and be a 12, 10-year starter, a franchise guy, then go for it. Then I, if I know him, I can deal with it. Otherwise, if you're a backup and you're not going to be a long-time starter, I don't want to know about you. I don't want to know your name. The best backup in the league is Drew Stanton of Arizona. He's proven he can win a game in a tight spot. I wouldn't recognize him if he walked into Burger King and stood next to me in line. I mean, I wouldn't. That's the perfect backup to me. But it's interesting because if you really look, there's questions now. Should Garoppolo be upset and want to go start? Quarterback is becoming in the NFL like real estate. Location, location, location. Go ask Brock Osweiler. He was with one of the 5 great organizations in the NFL, like New England, Pittsburgh, the Giants, the Packers, the Denver Broncos are never bad. They're never chaotic. They may not always get to the playoffs. They never humiliate themselves. They're not a roller coaster. So Brock Osweiler's like, I'd rather take a few dollars and go to Houston. Now he's in Cleveland and about to get cut. Like, be very careful leaving great. Never forget this. Aaron Rodgers waited. Drew Brees waited. Phillip Rivers waited. Tom Brady waited. Carson Palmer waited. Kirk Cousins waited. Those are 6 of the most productive guys in the NFL. Don't be in a hurry. So anyway, Jason Whitlock said this yesterday. I don't know where he got it. I'm sure it's original. I'm not in any way inferring that Jason Whitlock stole it off a plaque, but I thought it was a really interesting way to kind of describe young people and their eagerness to always go, get famous, make money now.
Young people today, man, they just hate the oven. They hate baking in the oven. Everybody thinks, hey, toss me in the microwave and I'm going to taste as good as something that was slow cooked the way your mama used to make it. And it just isn't true.
It's really smart. It's really smart that I see this all the time on social media. Young people want to be famous. Don't worry about being famous. Be great. You'll become famous. Justin Bieber got famous because he did good music and people were attracted to it. Everybody, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Yeah, I'm looking. You don't have any talent. Like when I worked at ESPN, I always looked at these guys who come into ESPN, guys or gals at 24, and they think they've made it. And I'm like, you're not even remotely ready to be a network personality. Go to Dayton, Ohio, and make a bunch of mistakes. Never forget, ESPN was not Keith Olbermann's first job, Dan Patrick's first job, Tony Kornheiser's first job, Michael Wilbon's first job. Most of the biggest names in the history of that business, that was like their second, third, fourth job. Like everybody just wants Garoppolo, go, go, go. Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years. Peter King talked about this. Nothing wrong learning from Belichick. Well, that's what he said.
Colin, look at the reality of Jimmy Garoppolo's situation. Let's say he left this year. You know where he would have gone? Cleveland. You tell me. You want to play in New England one more year in a very young age, your fourth year as an NFL player, get one more year of the Brady stuff seeping into you, playing for Belichick, learning under Josh McDaniels. You want to do that? Or do you want to go in Cleveland where at the end of the year they might fire the coach and the new coach might not like you?
Yeah. I'll tell you, that Whitlock thing, I'm going to steal that and use it on my show someday and pretend that I came up with it. This is a great quote.
Young people today, man, they just hate the oven. They hate bacon in the oven. Everybody thinks, hey, toss me in the microwave and I'm going to taste as good as something that was slow cooked the way your mama used to make it. And it just isn't true.
He does sound cooler saying mama than I would. That I'd give him. Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Well, the Patriots are having some real issues right now, some big problems that they have to deal with. I'm going to tell you about two of them. The first one, I don't know how they're going to get through this, but they had to actually do some construction to make room for all the banners that they have. It's a big problem.
First world problem.
Yeah, really bad problem. So here is Robert Kraft talking about how they're going to get through this tough time.
We had a high-class problem because we had no more room to put banners, so we had to change the construction around. So we have a little surprise for our fans that night. It should be very cool.
Oh, that is awesome.
That makes me want to go.
I know.
I mean, obviously, I have a little bit of an affinity for New England, but that makes me want to go just to see what the surprise is going to be.
That's the greatest problem in NFL history. We don't have enough room for our Super Bowl banners.
It might be. I would like to see how they got it done. But I feel like Robert Kraft is one of those guys when he says that there's a surprise coming, there really is, and it's going to be good. Yeah, it's not like a lame prize.
No, like where are they going to – it's going to be great.
No, I think there's going to be some sort of performance. I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I feel like there's going to be some cool star there performing. Who knows? The other problem that they're having is much more serious. This is Julian Edelman and Stephen Gilmore got into a fight after an incompletion. They kind of ran into each other. Helmets came off. They fought each other and were sent home from practice, which is a big difference from Jason Garrett. When his players got into a fight, he said, hey, I'd rather have this than trying to light a fire under them. This is good. Bill Belichick handles it the opposite way. Which way do you feel sits better with you?
I'm okay with occasional fights. I'm not encouraging them, but I think these players get tired of hitting each other for like 3 weeks. I think they get worn out. In college, you have limitations on the hours you can practice. The NFL, less so. I think, it's just like you can have teammates that you really like, but they know your weak spots and they know what bothers you and they chat in your ear. That's a great thing about football. You play one game a week. There's 50 plays. Even if I hate a guy, in, out, off the field, he's out of town. I think camp is frustration of facing the same guy. And by the way, you also, if I face you over and over, you start to know my moves and I know your moves. Mm-hmm. So I can't be as productive as I want because you know all my little tricks. And by the way, if I'm a defensive player, I know the offensive plays of the team. So I think it can compound and get frustrating for players.
Well, then they say, too, that in relationships, once you stop fighting, that's dangerous because that means you don't care anymore.
Right.
So if they're fighting, that means they care, right, which is good. And finally, this is great news for us. Roger Goodell seems that he does not want to have any more Super Bowls in a place where cold weather or ice or snow could be a factor, which is great news for us that we would not have to deal with that. But he said he wants the game played in perfect conditions. And, I do enjoy watching football when it's snow and it kind of affects the game, but not the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl, I think, should be even playing field.
It's by the way, the Super Bowl is also a reward for the teams, the coaches. Why let weather impair the product?
Right. Also, when you're in a smaller town and there's snow and all those extra people, to put that burden on the town to get rid of the snow, it's just too much.
I covered Jacksonville Super Bowl. They were so overwhelmed. Christine, you need about 4,000 cabs. Now you didn't have Uber then. That town has about 100. They were literally, I was jumping in the back of vans that I just think for local people wanted a $20 bill to get me to a restaurant. They were completely overwhelmed.
Even in Houston, I got in an Uber and the guy told me he wanted to charge me a flat fee of $200 to take me down the street. So it's a problem even in bigger cities.
Yeah.
But it does. See, you guys are thinking this means we don't go to cold weather. That just means it's places with a dome. We're still going to Minnesota. The field will be in perfect condition. We will be cold.
Yeah, but it's okay because when you're actually inside the stadium watching the game, then it won't be a problem. And I'm sure in Minnesota there'll be plenty of fires and.
By the way, even if you have a dome, let's say you go to Minnesota and they have a blizzard and it delays the flights. And it's bottom line is they don't move the Grammys. They don't move the Oscars.
They're in L.A.
Why do you got to move everything? They don't move Mardi Gras. It's in New Orleans every year. Why do you got to move?
That's not fair for the fans.
I'm not into fair. I never have been.
Yeah, but all the celebrities most of them live in L.A. The football players are all over the country.
Maybe everybody should move here. It's very nice.
No, please don't. Our traffic would be worse.
It's impossible. It could never be worse. Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
A senior producer at NFL Films that I have used on the air for 5 to 6 years and have enjoyed every minute of it. Nobody's more objective. Nobody I trust more in personnel opinions. His name is Greg Cosell. He's joining us for the second day in a row in studio from the NFL Films. And we've got some really cool tape today. I thought you did some yeoman effort yesterday with Dak and Aaron Rodgers. I want to start before we get to the film breakdown of the college kids.
Sure.
The Patriots and Garoppolo. So I'm for more data always. Like when you're judging, give me more tape. I think that's what's hard about the NBA draft. I get 30 games in the Big Ten. In college, if you're an SEC lineman, I get 4 years against LSU, Bama. So if you're Bill Belichick, from what you've seen so far on Garoppolo.
If I was Bill Belichick, I wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Of course, and you wouldn't say anything if you were.
Right.
Okay, but do you still have concerns that Garoppolo's the guy?
Absolutely. The sample size is too small to make that definitive judgment. They're with him every day, so they have a defined opinion, and we're not going to know that because Bill Belichick will not share that. But if you're just looking objectively, he's played, 2.5 games before he got hurt in the regular season, I believe? And he played in the preseason last year. And in the preseason last year, he showed some ups and downs. Then he came in the regular season, clearly improved to some degree. But the sample size is nowhere near large enough, Colin, to sit here and say definitely that this guy is going to be a great quarterback for the New England Patriots.
Now, he does bring more movement than Brady. Is there, in the preseason when he struggled, what specifically did you not like that you would say, don't love that?
Right. I thought that, and this was erratic. I thought he struggled a bit in the red zone, which didn't surprise me because everything happens faster in the red zone, and you must isolate where to go with the football quicker. But that didn't surprise me. That's the normal course of growing as a quarterback. But then he improved somewhat in that area. You make a good point. I think they might add some things when he plays, if he's the quarterback in New England at some point, add some things that involve more design movement. He certainly made a big play, as I recall, week 1 last year against Arizona. It was 3rd and 15, I believe, in the fourth quarter, and he came out of the pocket, not by design, outside of structure, and I think he moved to his left, actually, and made a big-time throw that ended up leading to the victory. Those are the kinds of things that he probably does better than Tom Brady, but we don't know the answer to what Garoppolo is as a 16-game starter. Think of it. That's a big difference. There's a lot of guys who can play well for a short period of time. We don't know what he would do as a 16-game starter.
I always said that about my industry. A lot of guys are great guests. Can they talk for 3 hours a day in June? Like, there's a difference between a great guest when you're the starter and everybody's got film every week. You can't hide flaws. And I want to.
Why are you mentioning that when I'm on?
There was coincidental. So Brady, Breeze, Big Ben, very close to retiring. I mean, we're a year or two away. When you look, let's take Breeze and Big Ben.
Sure.
When you look at veteran quarterbacks and you look at film for a living, where do you see age in Breeze and Big Ben?
Well, I think you start with what they do really well. Now, Breeze never had a big arm, but he had a better arm than people thought. And he had really strong legs, powerful legs, and he was an over-the-top thrower.
Yeah.
So he threw better than people thought. I think Breeze's arm has just gone down a little bit. Now, his numbers were still really good. He's obviously incredibly smart as a quarterback. He can isolate where he needs to go with the ball before the snap, which great quarterbacks do now in the NFL. But I think with Breeze, the arm is just dropping a little. Big Ben doesn't quite move exactly the same way he used to.
He doesn't.
And I think where the difference is that he loses a little bit of clarity with his vision downfield. He was always a master at being able to move, Colin, and keeping his clarity and his vision down the field, because often when he moved, he wasn't checking it down, he was throwing it down the field. And that was a rare trait that he had. He can still do it, but I don't think you see it as often as he did earlier in his career.
Let's segue to the fun stuff for the next 7-8 minutes here. This is rare, where we have three quarterbacks, and I talked to a lot of people, yourself included, and people are saying they look like potential A quarterbacks. This is not a BC class.
No, some are saying they could be the top 3 picks in the draft.
Yes, and I believe that to be true.
Right.
So let's look at all three. From your perspective, we're going to start with Sam Darnold.
Sure.
Because he's the most ballyhooed right now because of the Rose Bowl. USC's a fairly profound program. So let's look at tape on Sam Darnold.
And there's a lot of positives about it. And let me just start by saying these guys are going to play another year in college, maybe more, depending on what you believe about Darnold. And Darnold's only played 9 or 10 games. So these are not definitive judgments. These are just, here's what the tape shows. And I think Darnold shows a lot of real positive traits. And we know you had Clay Helton on yesterday. I got a chance to talk to him. It was awesome to share some thoughts about Sam. But I think there'll be some people, as we go to this shot, let's go to a shot from the Penn State game, which was the Rose Bowl game.
Right.
This was a touchdown. But I think that some people in NFL personnel departments will be bothered by this a little bit. Look right here. Look where the ball is. Look, the ball's below his waist. So he's dropping the ball below his waist. This is his delivery. He's got that little hitch in his giddy-up, as it were. Now, for some, that might be an issue. I'm not saying it's a fatal flaw. He could still be a high draft choice, maybe the number 1 pick. Here's another play. This is what he does really, really well. Okay, what he does really, really well is movement within the pocket. Here, as he drops back, he's going to get pressure. You know, he initially looks left, but he's going to then get pressure up the middle. He's forced to move here. We were talking about this with Big Ben. This is the ability to keep your focus down the field. He looks his receiver running the seam, and the safeties, it's a 2-deep look. It's cover 2. The safeties are split really wide. So he's able to maintain focus and then throw the ball down the middle of the field. That's what Sam Darnold does really well. There's a little bit of a recklessness to his game.
Yes.
You and I have talked about this.
He plays very fast.
He plays a little fast, but he does have really good vision on the move, and a lot of people really like that.
By the way, I think he's got a good arm, not a great arm.
I would agree, 100%.
Yeah,
it's not a gun.
It's not a gun. By the way, I think Andrew Luck's really good. I don't think he has a gun. I think
he's got a better arm than Darnold.
You do?
I do. I'll tell you what, and maybe Darnold will be the same guy. I think Luck's arm has shown better in the NFL because of the kinds of throws that are demanded in the NFL that he didn't often make in college. And in fact, I was wrong about that, Colin, because I thought his arm was just what you said, good, not great. And then I've seen him make some throws in the NFL that demanded power throws, and Luck makes those throws.
Let's go to Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen, I know his mom, by the way. He's this tall, slender kid that I've said, just on delivery,
right,
it's art. It is absolutely beautiful to look at. Didn't have a great year, some health concerns. What do you see with him?
I think he's arguably the most refined and polished quarterback of sort of the three we're going to talk about. We'll get to Josh Allen from Wyoming. And I think one of the things that I really looked at is he played a lot under center. And let's go to the tape and show that this particular play, I think, really speaks to what I'm talking about. This was a touchdown he threw. I believe it was against UNLV. And one of the reasons I wanted to show this is because he's under center. You don't see this a lot in college quarterbacks. Now, look what he's doing, Colin. Where's his head? He's turned his back to the defense. This is a learned trait. This is not something that you can automatically assume a guy can do. So he comes out off the play action, and he looks to his left. That's the design of the two-man route concept, but the safety is starting to work over that way. So what does Rosen do? Couple of things. Number one, he progression reads, but number two, his feet moved with his eyes. That is really critical. So he stepped to his throw. You can see that. Right. Look how he stepped to his throw. Really, really important. He is the most refined of the quarterbacks based on my film study up to this point.
Josh Allen. Nobody's seen him play.
Nope.
Big old country boy from Wyoming. And you like him.
Well, he's really physically talented. He's about 6'4.5", 235. The physical talent oozes off the tape. Now, he's got a lot to work on. I'm being totally honest here. And he's one of those guys that could make it really big, but he also has some things that if he doesn't get corrected and work on over time because he's a little undisciplined. But I want to show you a play that really speaks to me in a real positive way. So let's run this with Josh Allen. And the reason I wanted to show this is there's an anticipation element here that's absolutely critical. And you'll see him right here. Now, he's going to look to his left, and he wants to throw to his left, and you're going to see the safety and the corner there. It's a quarters-type coverage look, which means you're going to have the corner down below. He wants to hit the vertical route right here. This corner with his body position, he knows can't turn and run. That safety is stuck inside. He can't get over the top to the sideline, but it's when he threw the ball.
Way early.
Way early.
Wow.
And again, now you're dealing with anticipation, timing, so critical to play in the NFL.
And that looks like, to me, a good arm.
He's got a really good arm. He's got a gun. And there's one play that I want to show, and I want you to take a look at this play, because this is a play that not very many people can make. Okay, he drops back. This is the movement element. He had to move. Look at him move to his left, and look at him make this throw. Now,
oh God,
that, by the way, that was 55 yards in the air, and you're going to see it again. Off balance, and look at the accuracy on this throw, 55 yards in the air. That kind of reminded me a little of Roethlisberger coming out of Miami of Ohio. I mean, I don't
think a lot of NFL guys make that throw.
I couldn't agree more. So, to me, he's the most physically talented quarterback, and if he has a really good senior year and plays with a little more efficiency and a little more discipline in his game, a little more stability in his game, it wouldn't surprise me if he's the quarterback everyone's talking about come the 2018 draft.
Greg Cosell, final question. Yeah, I know. I'm going to be a Wyoming season ticket holder if I can get to Jackson.
You'll be watching a lot of Wyoming this year.
Finally, I don't really care about the media's opinion. I have always trusted you on quarterbacks.
Sure.
Is Colin Kaepernick this? Is Colin Kaepernick that? I see a guy that throws a fastball but no off-speed pitches, doesn't have great nuance to the position. That's what I see.
He does not. Colin Kaepernick is a power thrower, not much pace and touch, and he can run really fast in a straight line. The subtleties and nuances of playing NFL quarterback he doesn't really have. Now, because he moves so much, he won't turn it over a lot. That's a good thing. So Colin Kaepernick needs to play on a team the kind of team he played with in San Francisco. You need an offense that starts with the run game, and you need a really good defense. If he can play on a team like that, his deficiencies can be minimized. But if you just look at him as a quarterback where a coach says he can run a fully dimensional offense efficiently and effectively, coaches are going to back off a little bit from that.
By the way, does Baltimore fit for him offensive scheme-wise?
Well, everybody's assuming because Greg Roman's there, but he's not the coordinator. Does he fit there? He's not. He's certainly not as good a quarterback as Joe Flacco. So does he fit as a backup? That depends on their ability to run. They were not a very good running team a year ago.
They weren't.
And there's no reason to believe they'll be a real good running team this year.
Great seeing you. This is so much fun for me. Greg Cosell, thank you for coming on.
Colin, appreciate it. Thanks.
In L.A., it's The Herd. Welcome back. Adrian Beltre joined the 3,000 Hit Club a couple of days ago. Doug Gottlieb talked about that. I do think something is happening in sports, and I see it actually happening in life. I think people, I've always felt this about, like, technology. Technology is a gift, and I think you should embrace gifts. And people will come in and out of your life, and opportunities will come in and out of your life. And I can tell you from having done this for 30 years, you don't want to live a life of regret. If you get a job opportunity, you're not going to get it again, guaranteed. You're 25 years old. You may get your best job offer at 28, 30, 32. Now, a lot of people get multiple opportunities. But, like, technology is a gift. And so when you get technology, take advantage of it because it can elevate your IQ. It can elevate your knowledge, your wisdom. Curiosity is a really great thing to have as a person. And I kind of look at sports, and you should, as a professional athlete, be able to maintain great, like Adrian Beltre and Roger Federer and Kobe Bryant and LeBron James. All these nutritional opportunities, the oxygen tents, the flaxseed, whatever it is. I'm not saying you should be 44 and playing, but my takeaway is what we're seeing in society, in sports, is what we're seeing in life and society. Gifts are given to you, and I think in sports it's training gifts and nutritional gifts. And I think the really smart players who say, "Okay, I'm not going to eat fast food." Like Gronkowski now is like, "Okay, I'm done drinking. I'm going to take care of my body." You should be able to play longer. So I buttress that with my cynicism because I've grown up in my life in sports that guys get to about 33 and they just don't play the same. Michael Jordan can't jump like he used to. And Kobe Bryant can't do the tomahawk dunk like he used to. And there is a natural progression that I'm 52 and you're like, "Colin, how come you don't wear glasses?" Because I wear contacts. When you get to 52 years old, you got to make a choice. Glasses, my dad was an optometrist. I never liked glasses. I didn't like, they'd fall off my face and they were annoying and I'd lose them and I'd sit on them. Or you can choose contacts. But I remember being 43 years old and my vision eroded quickly. I can remember where I was. I was in a steakhouse in West Hartford, Connecticut, Fleming's. And I looked down at the menu, and the first time in my life, I'm like, there's ants all over the menu. I couldn't read a word. And it like hit overnight. I was just like, I can't read. And I've always wondered why steakhouses, which generally have older consumers, have the worst lighting. There should be like pharmaceutical lighting, like Walgreens lighting in a steakhouse, right? Young people eat at burger joints. You can have dark lighting there. Steak place should be just like a pharmacy, right? I can't see. But so I'm trying to kind of reconcile this whole thing where I'm seeing like Roger Federer, Adrian Beltre, Tom Brady, LeBron James, like Tour de France guys who are better like at 36 than they were at 32. And there's part of me here that's cynicism where I'm like, okay, I've seen this before. They're all taking stuff. But I don't want to be a cynic. I want to enjoy sports. And so Doug Gottlieb asked the question, do you Adrian Beltre? Do you look at it? I appreciate cynicism, and I totally get cynicism, but I do think there is something happening in sports now. Training's better, nutrition's better. Is blood thinning stem cell, is that stuff illegal in American sports? Some of these rich guys can go over to Germany, go over and do their things. Kobe made annual trips overseas. They weren't illegal. If it's available on the planet, as long as your league doesn't disqualify you for it, if stuff's available on the planet, use it. If I was an American pro athlete and my league did not outlaw something and I knew that I could go to Toronto or Dusseldorf and I could spin, plate spinning with your blood, I would do it. Why would I do it? I work in the media. People have hair pieces and plastic surgery and to extend their career. As long as it wasn't illegal, I wouldn't have a problem with it. And so I think, and the people that are trying to get nutritional and competitive edges have always been ahead of the testers. Like the testers are always playing catch up. It's the way the IRS works. The IRS is always playing catch up to the really good accountants. The accountants come up with a gateway or a way to save money for rich people, and the IRS is pursuing them. But the smart accountants are always ahead of the IRS. Well, people who are trying to get an edge in sports, they're generally ahead of the NCAA and the IOC and FIFA and the governing bodies. So when I watch Adrian Beltre, my thing is, hats off. He's always been a big-time hitter. I'm okay with the suspicion and cynicism. I think a lot of the cynicism for baseball records for older players comes from we don't trust the baseball media. And the baseball media is different than other medias. It just is. It has always been because, and here's why. Because in baseball, Christine, the season's so long, you literally live with the players for 8 months. Like in the NFL, there's 8 road games. 8. You can literally deal with the players once a week before the games and right after the game. And that's it. You don't live with the players. They're available on like Tuesday to talk, and then you don't get much of them. And then they talk right after the game if they starred. So there is sometimes a feisty relationship. You feel as a member of the media, I can take a few more shots. I got a little more leverage. I don't live with them. In baseball, if you're a beat writer, you can get closed off. I mean, they'll just shut the clubhouse if they think you're a leaker, if they think you're a spy, if they don't. So what happens in the baseball media, and I'm defending the baseball writer guy, you got to be very careful on the shots you take and the stories you break. Because you can Dennis Eckersley with David Price and the Red Sox, they just cut you off. And that's very prevalent in baseball. It's not in football. It's not. You don't deal with the players that much. You can get information without talking to most of the players. You can really get a lot of information. In baseball, you're around that batting cage. I mean, that is your ecosystem. That's your blood. That's your bloodstream. That batting cage every day, that's where you're getting all your information. Scouts, visitors, hitting coaches, that's the batting cage is, it's the barber shop of Major League Baseball. It's all the good gossip. And so if you get cut off and guys say, oh, there's Bob, to just cut him off, man, that'll spread like a virus in that clubhouse. So I think there's a natural cynicism for me when it comes to baseball and use of performance-enhancing drugs. I think a lot of stuff's hidden. A lot of baseball writers romanticize. There's a lot more support than report. And I think that is why oftentimes we are judgmental and cynics of profound baseball records later in baseball players' careers. 3,000 hits, though. That is something. And Beltre's always been a world-class hitter. All right, hour 3 coming up. Charlie Wise around the corner is third. This is The Herd. Wherever you may be and however you may be listening. Live in Los Angeles, iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Christine Leahy is joining me again today, our third hour. Charlie Weiss in 5 minutes. Former Notre Dame head coach, former Patriots offensive coordinator. Charlie Weiss will be joining us in 5 minutes. Christine, this just came down. Statement from the Ravens general manager and executive vice president Ozzie Newsome on today's report from ESPN regarding Colin Kaepernick. Quote, we're going through a process. We have not made a decision. The owner, Steve Bisciotti, has not told us we cannot sign Colin Kaepernick, nor has he blocked the move. Whoever is making those claims is wrong. So they're going through the process, and they could make a decision soon. I've said it before, I don't want my backup, be it Tebow, be it Manziel or Kaepernick, to be newsworthy, unless, like Garoppolo, you do believe he is going to be a 12-year franchise quarterback, or Kirk Cousins beneath RG3, and you really believe as a staff, we think he can be a 12-year quarterback. All right, but before Charlie Weiss comes out, let me briefly start with this. I've said this for years and years and years about Michael Jordan, is that Michael Jordan was not only a great player, obviously, but Michael Jordan had this shoe campaign. And, not to say that Magic and Bird didn't have shoe campaigns, but Nike created this Mars Blackmon, Michael Jordan shoe campaign, and it was literally a force field of popularity. And when you combine that with Michael Jordan's playing career, literally Michael Jordan punched teammates, infidelity, gambling issues, none of it punches through the force field. Is that Michael Jordan, between greatness and titles and the Nike campaign and his iconic stature, it doesn't matter if he was petty at a Hall of Fame speech. It doesn't matter that he got divorced. It doesn't matter about the gambling issues. 10 years after Michael Jordan retired, he was still America's most popular athlete, more than any NFL player. And this happens all the time. We've seen it time and time again. So this is the Brett Favre thing. Brett Favre, 6 times in his career, threw as many or more interceptions than touchdowns. And if you polled people today, most would say, oh, he's every bit as good as Brady. He's every bit as good. He's better than Aaron Rodgers. He's better than Peyton Manning. It was the Wranglers, the Razor Stubble, played for America's lovable Green Bay Packers, Popularity is an incredibly powerful thing. And Favre had it, and Michael Jordan still has it. And generally, to be super popular, you also have to be really, really good. So let's start with this. Steph Curry's really, really good. I mean, he's really, really good. But Steph Curry has become the adorable puppy in the NBA. He can do no wrong. So LeBron James had this workout video. You know, you ever see that workout video? It's viral, and LeBron's doing his workout stuff, and the camera's moving around him. And this thing's a couple years old. And, you know, he's just being goofy. He's just being goofy, and it's fun, and it's the world of YouTube, and LeBron's being goofy. So Steph Curry goes to a wedding this weekend and mocks him, and Kyrie Irving is there, and it's like, if LeBron mocks Steph Curry, that would not be taken as well. But Steph Curry, of course. So here's what Steph Curry said, because he got a little bit of heat, and Steph Curry said, I was just joking.
I mean, obviously, I didn't know anybody was filming, so when I saw the video, I knew it was going to blow up. It's not something that, if you look at it through the keyhole of just that 20 seconds, you don't really understand what I was doing. I've been, ever since he posted that first video, I've loved it because he made a song that maybe a lot of people wouldn't have known, pretty popular, just by posting that video. So he's got me doing the dance.
Do you buy that? 50-50. Some do, some don't. But this is what popularity does. Steph Curry, this is like when the puppy chews your shoes. Oh, he didn't know any better. He was a puppy. He didn't know any better. He chewed your shoes up. When Steph Curry took a dump on the court, can you imagine if LeBron did that? Oh, he didn't. Steph Curry didn't know better. He thought the floor was grass. He thought it was the yard. He didn't mean to do that. When Steph Curry threw his mouthpiece, oh, the puppy's just a little riled up. You know, he's teething. The puppy's teething right now. He's going through a little bit of pain. He taunts LeBron. Well, he's got a little spunk. He has a force field of popularity. He's likable. He's fun. We're giving him a new nickname on this show. He's the Teflon puppy of the NBA. From now on this show, we're calling him Stephlon.
Oh, come on.
Stephlon Curry, the NBA's Teflon puppy of the NBA. Take a dump on the court, throw your mouthpiece, taunt LeBron. Oh, he's just teething. He doesn't know any better. If LeBron did that, we'd have DEFCON 12. All right, and as promised, we are getting close to these. The camps are already open, and I wanted to bring Charlie Weis on. 3 Super Bowl rings as an offensive coordinator, former Notre Dame head coach. Charlie Weis now joining us on the show, and we're just going to grind down for football talk. So I want you to go back. This is camp time. This is just camps. Okay.
I love camp.
I know. But let's say you're a team, like you're either in 3 schools of thought. You got your Derek Carr, you got your Rodgers. That's a different camp. And then you've got a Kirk Cousins who's good, maybe not great. That's a different camp. And then you're the Rams and you got Jared Goff. Or you're Houston and you've got Deshaun Watson, who I actually like. How long? Now, Charlie, take me into this. When you and Belichick were together, you drafted a lot of quarterbacks. Like, you guys were kind of believers in, hey, look, we got to have backups.
Yeah, second or third day quarterback.
Yes.
Yep.
How long did it take you, Charlie Weis, to bail on a guy, to think, Bill, we can't, he's not good enough?
Well, you'll have about a week and a half for true competitions to take place. That's all it is, because you think about it, once exhibition games, come on, it's however they play in a game. However they play in the game kind of starts setting the pace for who's ranking where. I mean, for a week and a half, you're just going offense against defense. You're not working against any other teams. You're not working at any other coverages or see anything different from the quarterback viewpoint. So realistically, there's only a couple week period where you're really competing
Can you get anything out of practice, Charlie?
Oh, absolutely.
You can.
Oh, absolutely.
The Cowboys knew Dak was pretty good before the game.
Oh, absolutely. It didn't take the first game for them to realize they had something there.
What is it? There's no hitting. There's no pressure, is there?
Well, it's just how you perform. You're going first offense against first defense. So Tony's not there. Once Dak goes in there with the ones, obviously the first offense was ripping up the first defense. I mean, I don't have to be there to tell you that was happening.
Right.
Then all of a sudden players turn around and say, this kid's got something to him. Because the players, all they care about is who gives us the best chance of winning. That's all they care about. They could care less about anything other than that.
Charlie, you have helped draft college to pro and high school to college. Are there kids that perform well at practice, but the lights come on in the game and it's not the same player?
Absolutely. They exist too. There's guys that, let me go one step further than that. There's guys in the classroom that get everything, and then you go on the field and it's like you never said a word to them. So then there's guys that are good practice players. I've had plenty of good practice players, and then the game shows up and the lights turn on. They're like a deer in headlights. Happens all the time. So,
like Garoppolo, from what you've seen. Now, listen, I mean, as good as Tom is, when you get to be 40, 41, your eyesight goes. You don't recover from injuries as quickly. I've had NBA guys say, you bang knees in the NBA at 25, you miss a half. You do it at 30, you miss a week. You do it at 36, you're out of the league. So what do you think they see internally? Have they seen enough of Garoppolo to say, it's it. He's our guy.
Well, they've already put him in, and he's won for him. When he's gone in, he's performed, pretty well for him. Now, there isn't a huge body of evidence on tape for the games. Okay, but you can bet in training camp, Jimmy's getting, a ton of work. And he's obviously last year with Tommy not playing the first 4 games, he got a ton of work. Mm-hmm. Okay, so at this point, I think they know what they have.
What about guys who are slower? For instance, Big Ben, when Eli Manning came in, they gave him the playbook. When Big Ben came in, they tapered it a little bit. He didn't have as much. It was more conservative under Ken Whisenhunt. He had a defense, and he had the formidable team. How long, like when you take a young quarterback, would you just throw everything at him and just see, he can't handle it? How do you decipher early, we got to go slow with this guy? Is it physical or mental or emotional?
I think with any quarterback, it's what they can handle mentally. What can they handle? Because if they can't handle it, then don't call it. Because the chance of it being successful is minimal. I think that a lot of people think it's just about their physical attributes. Well, he can sling the ball over the yard. Well, but if he can't read coverage, then you're going to have to figure a way to put him in the best position. You as a coach now have to figure out, we're not cutting this guy. I have this guy. How do I give him the best chance of being successful? So you might cut the field in half. In other words, you might call plays, say, this player right here is designed to go to the right, bottom up. 1, 2, 3. Okay, first guy's open, second guy's open, third guy's open. If not, run the ball or throw it away.
Just simplify it.
Yeah, that's right.
Look at half the field.
So that's what you do. You as a coach, you cut down, what their options are. You don't give them a full field read. Not every quarterback can read coverage. Not everyone can read a full field. Okay, some can, but some quarterbacks are really good at progression. 1, 2, 3. It doesn't take too much to figure that one out.
Right.
Okay, so I think that once you have somebody like Tommy, you have a guy who can both do progression and coverage, then you got something special. And you knew that young, that helped you move him at a faster pace. But there's a lot of guys that's not the case. Yeah. There's a lot of veterans that's not the case. So you formulate a game plan that fits their strengths mentally.
When you coach at the college level, and there has been some discussion that college football is just no longer giving the NFL enough good quarterbacks. We're getting like 5 out of 6 guys struggle. You had a pro-style offense, then you moved to the college game, and there's some limitations on practice time. You can't have too sophisticated a college offense unless you've got a 4-year senior quarterback. Is college football now the problem, not the solution for the paucity, the lack of the number of great NFL quarterbacks?
I think it just takes you more time to get them ready to play. Because if you're in the shotgun every single play, run, spread, every single play.
That's college football now.
Okay, now all of a sudden you're at the line of scrimmage, you're underneath center, we're turn your back to the line of scrimmage and go and play action. I mean, the faster you can evolve and develop those skills, the sooner you're ready to play. I mean, there's been guys that have waited 2-3 years before they went ahead and played. But when you draft a guy in the first round, when you draft a guy and you're paying him money, okay, two things happen. Okay, the expectations rise, okay, both internally and externally. Okay, the expectations rise, and the fact that you're looking for this guy to potentially be the face of your program. Okay, well, those guys are the face of your program, end up getting paid an awful lot of money. Okay, so you have to figure out when the best time to get them on the field that they're ready to go and then get them out there and live with it. You think about when Peyton came out. They just threw him in there, and he got the crap kicked out of him for an entire year.
He did.
Okay, they were awful. Okay, but that was a learning experience for Peyton, and Peyton turned that experience into a positive one, even though it was a negative one. Okay, each quarterback's a little different, and each team's a little different. You mentioned Deshaun before. Well, Deshaun's got a good opportunity here because Tom Savage, who's the starting quarterback, really hasn't had a lot of playing time either. So if you look, you're going to a team where you're competing against a veteran who really hasn't played that much either.
You have a chance to win a job.
You have a chance of your chance. The chances go up exponentially.
Charlie Weiss, the great Aaron Parsegian died this morning. I knew him as a broadcaster. He quit coaching. I was 7 years old, so he was kind of legendary, almost a John Madden, where a lot of kids knew him. It was the video game. They didn't see him coach the Raiders, right? Because he didn't coach that long. He was really good to you.
He was wonderful to me. His last year of coaching was my freshman year of college. So I went to Notre Dame. There was the coach, Coach Parsegian, and he walked away. They didn't fire him, which is, this was a guy who had been there and won 2 national championships, but he couldn't have been any better. I mean, him and his wife. I mean, they took care of us. We try to go out for dinner with him occasionally. He had a great charity for his grandkids that had all died of Neiman Pick. I mean, he couldn't have been any better of a person and a spokesman for that university.
He left. They were 8-3 the year he left. I've always said you could coach in some institutions. I think you could coach at USC a long time. I don't think you can coach at Notre Dame forever. I think it's like Kentucky basketball. I think the intensity is so great. After about 10 years of Kentucky basketball, it wears you out. He retired and still had a lot of years left to live. Do you think, and this is not to set you up on Brian Kelly, but Brian Kelly told me a year ago, he's like, this is not a 20-year job. Could Notre Dame do a better job to make it easier to coach there?
Well, I mean, there's so many subjective factors when you ask that. I would have liked a few more years myself, to tell you the truth. Okay, but that being said, saying that in jest, I think that you need to know when you go in there, it's a different program. It's different. I mean, grades and going to school and getting your degree is going to matter
a lot.
High character is going to matter. Okay, football is going to matter. I always just say in recruiting, it's like a pie. There's 3 things that are involved. Okay, character, academics, and can you play? And if you're missing any of those ingredients, okay, then you really can't play there. Because if you're a high character guy who gets good grades and can't play, then you can't play. Okay, if you can play and you have high character, but you can't read and write, you can't play. Okay, and if you can read and write and you can play, but you're in trouble all the time, you can't play then either.
Well, it's a small town, and Notre Dame's the centerpiece of it. Socially, it's not necessarily an easy place, right?
No, it's not a. But I'm telling you, I don't know too many players that were there when I was there that didn't enjoy themselves socially. Usually, when they came to you and said they wanted to leave because they didn't enjoy a place socially, it's because they weren't playing.
That's generally the rule everywhere.
That was usually the case.
Okay, let's end with Kaepernick. I don't see him as a franchise quarterback. I've always had a theory on backup quarterbacks. I don't want him to be newsworthy. That's why I'm not a Tebow guy. I'm not a Manziel guy. I'm not a Cap guy. Now, I will make an exception if they're Garoppolo and I think he's my next guy. Then if you're Tom Handsome and you look great and you're in the new, I can live with a little bit of it. So if you were, right now you're in Baltimore and Flacco's out, well, Charlie, what do you do?
From my perspective, without getting into all the political aspects of this player, I think that's going to happen for this young man is somewhere this year, a starting quarterback is going to get hurt.
Yes.
And then the backup is going to be the starter, and somebody's going to bring him in and try to get him ready to play. Because now he won't be threatening. He won't be that distraction that you were talking about. The best job in football is the backup quarterback. You go there and everyone cheers for you.
Right.
Because you're not playing.
Right.
Once you're playing, everything changes all of a sudden.
So you do think there is, because you're not the first person to say this. Doug Gottlieb said this earlier. Flacco's coming off a rough year. Baltimore wasn't as good. Kaepernick comes in. He's wildly polarizing. Do you think Flacco could even feel a little threatened?
No, I don't think he'd feel threatened. But, that's look at Ozzie, John, they know what they're doing.
They're smart dudes.
Okay, if they bring them in, they've already talked all these things out. They've figured it out. But I personally think that what's going to end up happening is somebody will get hurt because somebody's going to get hurt. I mean, it's football. There's going to be a starting quarterback that goes down, and now your backup's a starter. Now his value goes way up because now you're not talking about bringing in that guy who's newsworthy. Okay, as it currently stands, getting ready for the season. Now you're in desperation mode, and you're trying to bring guys in there that you get ready to play to give you a chance of winning.
Right. Charlie Weiss, 3 Super Bowl rings, former Notre Dame coach. Where do you keep your rings?
I keep them in the safe. They're already dedicated to my kid. They're my kid's rings.
Those are pretty amazing.
I wore them for a while, and then I got a lot of abuse by using them in recruiting. My favorite line, I used to wear a Super Bowl ring, and I say, if I can get them to look at my ring instead of my face, I got a good chance. But now I say I wear the only ring that matters. So that gives me brownie points with my wife. That's just the way it works.
Got
Very cool.
Very cool. Charlie, good seeing you. In L.A., it's the Herd. So last night there was an amazing play in a baseball game. Red Sox played the Indians. Indians outfielder Austin Jackson made one of the all-time great catches. So let's just roll the tape on this and watch what Austin Jackson did for the Cleveland Indians last night at beautiful Fenway Park.
He's a great hitter, too, Andre. Switch hitter at that.
There's a long fly ball. Deep center field. Jackson's back. He leads. He made an unbelievable catch. He flipped into the bullpen. Did he hang on? That's the only question at this point.
He sure did.
What a play by Austin Jackson. That just might be the play of the year.
Yeah, except it should be a home run. The ball ended up over the fence. I don't understand that rule in baseball. The ball ended up over the fence. Why not just have guys, your outfielders, stand on the other side of the wall and make grabs all the time? Throw it back in. I don't understand it. A fan can't leave the park. You go through those gates, they don't let you back. Re-entry is not allowed. Fans can't leave the park and come back in. Why can a baseball player leave the park and it counts as an out? Shouldn't part of it be you can make that catch, but you have to stay in the park? Am I crazy on that?
I think it's fair. I mean, most of the time you're not going to run into this issue because they have adult-sized
it's
walls.
Twice a year.
The catch was made while in the air. It wasn't made.
Well, but in the NFL,
he didn't jump over and then land and then catch it.
But in the NFL, when you catch the ball, you have to get your feet down in the end zone.
But that's an offensive play.
Well, offense or defense, you should be able to make a catch that's like if you made the catch in fair territory in front of the fence and then banged into the wall and went over. But
that's the wall's fault.
Okay, that ball, I don't buy that. That should be a home
Colin,
run.
if it hits you, this happened to Jose Canseco. If it hits you and goes over the fence, it's a home run. So what's the difference?
Am I the only person saying that?
Yeah, this is one of the most exciting things in baseball for me is when it looks like it could be a home run, but the guy is able to make an amazing catch. I don't want to take that away. That's entertaining.
Listen, it's wildly entertaining. But by the way, Des Bryant, I mean, think about the NFL. Des Bryant has the ball, both feet down, knee down, elbow down, ball secure, hits the ground, it comes out, and they're like, no catch. This guy's like, hey, I'm going out in the parking lot and grab this thing. Ah, great catch. Man, baseball, you can leave the whole stadium. I don't know.
You should just roam the bullpen next time.
No kidding.
Just catch the ball out there.
I just from now on, right fielders, just go sit in the stands. I'm out there like, hey, I caught it out here, and no home run. I don't know. What would you do in foul ground? Remember Derek Jeter's great catch?
That's Jeter. That
yeah, that's Jeter. Yeah, all the rules are off for Jeter. You should always allow Jeter to run anywhere to make a catch. I just sound like I think I sound like a really smart baseball savant talking about this.
Like one of the old school guys who doesn't want fun.
I'm not anti-fun. This
is fun.
The Herd brought to you by JCPenney. Guys, biggest sale of the year. Brands, Levi's, 502 regular fit jeans, $39.99. Get 25% off select styles of Nike T-shirts, shorts, and backpacks. Getting your pennies worth on JCPenney. I don't know, just jumping up. You leave your feet, the ball in your glove. So you never really have your feet down and you have it. You leave momentum over. I could argue that's a home run. Like why not scale the wall? Why not if you scale the wall and just stand up there and catch it and the momentum takes you over? That's a catch too? I don't know. Okay, here, Chris in Brooklyn. Chris, you're a baseball guy in Brooklyn. Okay, why is it an out?
Similar to a basketball player shooting behind the three-point arc and landing with his feet in the two-point area. It's because of momentum. His body was behind the field or in the field of play, but his momentum carried him out of bounds.
What do you think about that, Goulet?
We spent the entire morning arguing about this in our meeting, and that guy just made a better point than any one of us.
Hey, Chris in Brooklyn. Let's hear applause for Chris in Brooklyn, who had really, literally, he made more sense. All right, Christine with the news.
No. Turn on the news. This is the Herd Line News.
Well, the Cowboys face a fine now for having 3 players suspended at one time. So the rule, which they're apparently looking at to revise, but currently it's 25% of the base salaries of the suspended players. So that would equal about $91,000 as a fine, which I actually
per
don't
player?
think is that. No, total. That you face a penalty when it's 3 players suspended on your team at one time. So total, their fine is $91,000, which I actually don't think is very much money if we're talking about an NFL team.
Okay.
The problem is they also have 3 more players who could face suspension, which would bring the team's fine to $500,000, which means they'd have 6 players suspended at one time, and they'd only pay $500,000. And the rule was put into place to hold teams accountable for acquiring players who have violated league policy. I don't think $500,000 is going to deter teams enough from bringing on players who have violated policies.
Yeah.
So that fine, in my opinion, needs to go way up.
Yeah. Fines generally, players are making so much money on so many different things. I mean, like, to fine an NBA player now is like comedy. You're going to be fined $100,000 for missing a TV game. $100,000 for the God.
Well, for some of them, but this is for the team. This isn't for the player; it's for the team. So $500,000 is like, eh.
Jerry Jones's net worth. I mean, you could look it up. What is it, like $30 billion?
It's a lot of money. It's not enough to deter teams, clearly, because they could potentially have 6 players on one team suspended.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Tom Brady's birthday is tomorrow. He turns 40 years old. Doesn't look 40 at all. And Rob Gronkowski today at practice was asked what he would get Brady for his birthday. And in true Gronk fashion, he responded, I get him touchdowns. You got to catch the ball. That's all he wants.
Oh, God.
His receivers, tight ends, running backs to catch the ball. So that's probably what he wants.
Look at, I mean, honestly, look how much bigger Gronk looks than other NFL players. Like
he's huge.
If you ever stood next to an NFL player, they're big. Gronk is significantly bigger than big NFL players. God, he's like a defensive tackle running down the field. He's huge.
I've actually stood next to a lot of NFL players. Some of them are really small.
Well, it's funny. Teddy Bruschi, who he used to work with, was smaller in person than I thought.
Yeah.
You know what it is? It's funny about that you bring that up. The NFL's really interesting. Like, you ever go to a workout club or something, and there's like beefy guy, and he's just like, I'm not going to say he's using roids, but the pimples on the back, and he's got all this big body, but he's not flexible. Like, it's pretty interesting when I've met NFL players. Now, I will say, sometimes you meet these tackles, like left tackle, right tackle. They're like 6'7", 310.
They're huge, yeah.
They're monsters. But a lot of people think it's all strength. So much of this league is flexibility, ability to comprehend, agility. Like, when you meet NFL guys on average, to your point, they're not always huge.
No.
They're real. Now, Peyton Manning, when I met him, I'm like, way bigger. But Teddy Bruschi was smaller. Jeff Saturday, who I work with, is smaller. Tony Gonzalez, when you meet him, Tony's in really good shape.
Like a lot of corners, receivers, safeties, some of them are shorter than me and just ripped.
Yeah.
And finally, also in Tom Brady news, the Dreamland Wax Museum, which I didn't even know existed, but is in Boston, so that's weird. I lived there for 7 years and didn't know it existed, made a Tom Brady wax statue, and it doesn't look like Tom Brady. It looks kind of creepy, which made me think, why can no one get it right when they're trying to replicate Brady?
That doesn't look like anything like Brady.
Do you remember the courtroom picture, the sketch of Tom Brady?
Yeah, that was awful.
Like, what?
Made him look like an old crow.
Why can't anyone get this right?
Yeah, look
He's
at that.
a good-looking guy.
That honestly
Make him look good.
looks Dahmer-esque.
That actually is the better version. There was another one that came out that was worse.
Let's see the wax.
Do we have the worst
Let's
one?
see the wax Brady one.
That's creepy.
That doesn't look anything like
him.
Tom Brady.
People said it looks more like Jimmy Garoppolo than it does Brady.
It does.
Might
It
be a
does
sign.
look more
They
like.
can just make a couple adjustments, change the jersey out, and they'll be good to go, as you say, in 1 year.
Christine with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
John Goulet has a backup quarterback game in the NFL. We were talking about Kaepernick and how the best backup quarterback in the NFL is Drew Stanton because he's good enough to win you a game or two, but you wouldn't recognize him if he walked into your practice facility. And I don't want my backup to be more newsworthy than my starting quarterback, and Kaepernick would be in Baltimore, so I try to be consistent. I'm just not giving Johnny Manziel, Tebow, or Kaepernick a backup quarterback gig. No thanks. Too much news. Flacco's vanilla coming off a bad year. It's like, I'm not even. I've said before, I think this story is more about politics than football. That's why the Kaepernick story to me has been a big turnoff. Now, we have people at our network. ESPN has gone all in on it, and they're probably seeing value in it. And we have a lot of people, Shannon Sharp and Whitlock, have gone all in on this story, and they're probably seeing dividends. Like, I feel this story is politics over football, and I like football way more than politics, so I'm not trying to be self-righteous here. I've kind of stayed out of the Kaepernick story. I've probably made a mistake. I'm probably being too self-righteous. I'm probably making a big error in judgment here. I should probably go look at the times I talk about Kaepernick and if anybody cares, but I would rather have a non-newsworthy backup. So, John, you play the game. You name the backup quarterback. I have to name the team.
Okay, now this is last year's rosters. So that means they were in uniform. You've seen them. It shouldn't be that hard. This is not where they are this year. This is last year. Luke McCown.
Oh, God, there's like 7 McCowns in the league. All right, let me think about this for a second. Luke McCown. I don't know why. Oh, this is embarrassing. Luke McCown. Chicago.
He was actually on the Saints last year.
Okay.
So by your definition, then he's a good backup.
Yeah.
Because you didn't even know.
That's right.
Sean Hill.
He's a former bartender, I think.
He's also played on most teams, but we want the team he was on last year.
God, that's a good one. Sean Hill can move a little. Okay, I'm gonna throw this out there. Sean Hill was on. Now I know Green Bay's backup. Sean Hill was on Detroit.
He was it previously in his career, but he was on the Vikings last year.
Okay.
Nick Foles.
Nick's still getting kicked around the league. Okay, he was in Philly, left Philly, went to the Rams, I thought. Okay. I know actually about 10 of these backups. You're just giving me bad. Nick Foles, Kansas City.
There you go. You finally got one.
Okay.
Does that mean he's a bad backup?
He's too newsworthy. Get him out of there, Andy Reid. It's way too newsworthy.
All right, Chad Henne.
God, he's still in the league. Okay, hold on. No, he's not in the NFC East. He's not Eli's backup. Chad Henne. Okay, here we go. No. Colt McCoy is behind Kirk Cousins. All right, hold on. I don't know why I'm thinking East Coast. Chad Henne. He won in San Francisco, won in Seattle. Chad Henne, San Diego Chargers.
Not even the right coast. He was on the Jaguars last year.
That's why I don't know.
Kellen Clemens.
He's still in the league.
Still in the league.
From Bend, Oregon. Burns, Oregon.
You say so.
Burns, Oregon. He's a rancher's kid. God, he's still in the league. Kellen Clemens. Boy, you went and got... You talk about getting Capone's vault here. You went and got the most anonymous guys in the league. Kellen Clemens. Come on, play at home, everybody. There's some guy out there that, he knows it's his team. Let me guess. Kellen Clemens. Give me NFC or AFC?
AFC.
Hold on. No, he's not. Landry backs up Big Ben. Kellen Clemens. Cincinnati.
He was the Chargers backup last year.
God.
All right. This is you want to still in the league one. Matt Castle.
You know, he lives not far from where I live. I should have asked him, who do you play for?
Probably should have. Was he wearing, some team stuff?
He's bigger in person.
Around?
Matt's bigger in person. He was a tight end at USC. He's a big, looks like a pro volleyball player or something. Matt Castle last year. Okay, AFC or NFC?
AFC.
Oh, Jesus. He doesn't play for the Jets. Matt Castle didn't play for New England. I'm going to... Okay. Tennessee.
Wow. No idea you would get that
Total
one.
guess.
All right, I got two more. Matt Moore.
Cowboys.
That's Kellen Moore.
Oh, damn. Matt Moore, he was in Miami. You know, I always thought Matt Moore was he's like Drew Stanton. He can win you a game. Matt Moore, he can win you a game. AFC or NFC?
AFC.
Matt Moore. I don't know why I think Miami. He was already there. Miami.
I was going to make fun of you if you got that one wrong. He started a playoff game last year. Remember? He started against the Steelers. All right, last one. Scott Tolzien.
Oh, I love Scott Tolzien. I confuse him with former Cardinal third baseman Scott Rowland. Not really. Scott Tolzien. Well, that's the Colts.
Nice little streak to end it. Yes,
How about
he was
that?
The Colts backup.
I ended strong.
You know more backups than I thought you would.
My bullpen's very good. I end games very well. Good stuff. I thought we had a really cool moment earlier. I was talking about how a lot of these NFL quarterbacks like Brady, Big Ben, and Breeze are getting ready to retire here in the next year or two. And this is a rare year when people believe... I don't remember a year where we have three quarterbacks, Sam Darnold, USC, Josh Rosen, UCLA, and Josh Allen at Wyoming. People think they're franchisers, and they may be the first three picks in the NFL draft. In fact, they will be. And so I want to take you... This is just 4 or 5 minutes from Greg Cosell earlier. He looked at film of each one. I thought it was really, really entertaining.
Let me just start by saying these guys are going to play another year in college, maybe more, depending on what you believe about Darnold. And Darnold's only played 9 or 10 games. So these are not definitive judgments. These are just, here's what the tape shows. And I think Darnold shows a lot of real positive traits. And we know you had Clay Helton on yesterday. I got a chance to talk to him. It was awesome to share some thoughts about Sam. But I think there'll be some people, as we go to this shot, let's go to a shot from the Penn State game, which was the Rose Bowl game. Right. This was a touchdown. But I think that some people in NFL personnel departments will be bothered by this a little bit. Look right here. Look where the ball is. Look, the ball's below his waist. So he's dropping the ball below his waist. This is his delivery. He's got that little hitch in his giddy-up, as it were. Now, for some, that might be an issue. I'm not saying it's a fatal flaw. He could still be a high draft choice, maybe the number one pick. Here's another play. This is what he does really, really well. Okay, what he does really, really well is movement within the pocket. Here, as he drops back, he's going to get pressure. You know, he initially looks left, but he's going to then get pressure up the middle. He's forced to move here. We were talking about this with Big Ben. This is the ability to keep your focus down the field. He looks his receiver running the seam, and the safeties, it's a two-deep look. It's cover two. The safeties are split really wide. So he's able to maintain focus and then throw the ball down the middle of the field. That's what Sam Darnold does really well. There's a little bit of a recklessness to his game.
Yes.
You and I have talked about this.
He plays very fast.
He plays a little fast, but he does have really good vision on the move, and a lot of people really like that.
By the way, I think he's got a good arm, not a great arm.
I would agree, 100%.
Yeah,
it's not a gun.
It's not a gun. By the way, I think Andrew Luck's really good. I don't think he has a gun. I think
he's got a better arm than Darnold.
You do?
I do. I'll tell you what, and maybe Darnold will be the same guy. I think Luck's arm has shown better in the NFL because of the kinds of throws that are demanded in the NFL that he didn't often make in college. And in fact, I was wrong about that, Colin, because I thought his arm was just what you said, good, not great. And then I've seen him make some throws in the NFL that demanded power throws, and Luck makes those throws.
Let's go to Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen, I know his mom, by the way. He's this tall, slender kid that I've said, just on delivery,
right,
it's art. It is absolutely beautiful to look at. Didn't have a great year, some health concerns. What do you see with him?
I think he's arguably the most refined and polished quarterback of sort of the three we're going to talk about. We'll get to Josh Allen from Wyoming. And I think one of the things that I really looked at is he played a lot under center. And let's go to the tape and show that this particular play, I think, really speaks to what I'm talking about. This was a touchdown he threw. I believe it was against UNLV. And one of the reasons I wanted to show this is because he's under center. You don't see this a lot in college quarterbacks. Now, look what he's doing, Colin. Where's his head? He's turned his back to the defense. This is a learned trait. This is not something that you can automatically assume a guy can do. So he comes out off the play action, and he looks to his left. That's the design of the two-man route concept, but the safety is starting to work over that way. So what does Rosen do? Couple of things. Number one, he progression reads, but number two, his feet moved with his eyes. That is really critical. So he stepped to his throw. You can see that. Right. Look how he stepped to his throw. Really, really important. He is the most refined of the quarterbacks based on my film study up to this point.
Josh Allen, nobody's seen him play.
Nope.
Big old country boy from Wyoming, and you like him.
Well, he's really physically talented. He's about 6'4.5", 235. The physical talent oozes off the tape. Now, he's got a lot to work on. I'm being totally honest here. And he's one of those guys that could make it really big, but he also has some things that if he doesn't get corrected and work on over time because he's a little undisciplined. But I want to show you a play that really speaks to me in a real positive way. So let's run this with Josh Allen. And the reason I wanted to show this is there's an anticipation element here that's absolutely critical. And you'll see him right here. Now, he's going to look to his left, and he wants to throw to his left, and you're going to see the safety and the corner there. It's a quarters-type coverage look, which means you're going to have the corner down below. He wants to hit the vertical route right here. This corner with his body position, he knows can't turn and run. That safety is stuck inside. He can't get over the top to the sideline, but it's when he threw the ball.
Way early.
Way early.
Wow.
And again, now you're dealing with anticipation, timing, so critical to play in the NFL.
And that looks like, to me, a good arm.
He's got a really good arm. He's got a gun. And there's one play that I want to show, and I want you to take a look at this play, because this is a play that not very many people can make. Okay, he drops back. This is the movement element. He had to move. Look at him move to his left, and look at him make this throw. Now,
oh God,
that, by the way, that was 55 yards in the air, and you're going to see it again. Off balance, and look at the accuracy on this throw, 55 yards in the air. That kind of reminded me a little of Roethlisberger coming out of Miami of Ohio. I mean, I don't
think a lot of NFL guys make that throw.
I couldn't agree more. So to me, he's the most physically talented quarterback, and if he has a really good senior year and plays with a little more efficiency and a little more discipline in his game, a little more stability in his game, it wouldn't surprise me if he's the quarterback everyone's talking about come the 2018 draft.
They'll be the first three picks. Three quarterbacks. Boom, boom, boom. Boy, I'll tell you what, when you watch that kid from Wyoming, holy moly, that's like, wow. Like when you make but again, you fall in love with the arm, it's just like anybody else. Be careful of what you're attracted to initially. Like you look at the kid from Wyoming and you're like, that's ridiculous. Toughness, guile, competition, all matters. All right, tomorrow, Ray Lewis and Kenyon Martin for Christine Leahy. Speak for Yourself is later. You can go to theherdnow.com, theherdnow.com for more free stuff. In LA, it's The Herd.